Everyone, Darcy J Smyth from the Tonal Persuasion Method for Sales. I'm joined by Jay Tinkler of Conduit Creative. Thank you for joining us, Jay.
Thanks, Darcy. Great to be here, mate.
Awesome. For those that haven't heard of Jay before, I've wanted to interview Jay for a while because we connected through a mutual friend. Shout out to Rebecca Livesey, she'll be watching. We connected through a mutual friend, and Rebecca said, you need to meet Jay. He is so aligned with the whole idea of trust in the modern marketplace, and how in the modern marketplace, particularly compared to say 20, 30 years ago, how we cultivate trust with our clients, both before they actually become a buyer and again, after they become a buyer. And it seemed that we did share very similar views on this, Jay, that we know we'd want to give to both of our respective markets. So that's why I'm so pleased to finally be able to share the screen with you.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Yeah, definitely. I think when we first caught up, there was definitely a lot of parallels in the stuff that we've been working on, albeit from different angles. I think we've sort of come to a lot of the same conclusions.
For sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time people know, watching this, of course, I'm in the area of sales, which is very trust-based within itself. And Jay, you take the more approach with your digital agency, Conduit Creative.
Yep.
But more recently, you've been delving in more specifically into trust and the psychology behind it and the motivation behind it with clients moving forward. Tell us a bit about that. What have you been finding?
Yeah, listen. Well, probably a bit of background is probably a good place to start. We've been operating our digital agency for about 8 or 9 years now. And listen, we've always been focused on communication and how best to communicate a message to a target audience. And believe it or not, I still have conversations today where that it seems common sense, but we get so caught up in the pretty pictures and how we want to be perceived that we forget about who we're talking to, right? So we've been doing that for years, and I come from a long lineage of communicators, and so it's always been the psychology of communication has always been something that's been a bit of a passion of mine. Over the last few years, though, the interesting thing that we've started to see is that from a digital perspective, the push to a DIY model, people are taking a lot of this stuff internally. A lot of the strategy and the planning around the target audience and how best to communicate and is being stripped away and somewhat templated. So we've started to explore this concept of trust because it really, we find, is the cornerstone for not only our offline selling and being how we communicate in meetings and how we get across our products and services to our clients, but a lot of that is replicated in the online world as well.
Yeah.
So definitely sort of a correlation there, I guess, with some of the stuff that you work on. But what we're sort of looking at is going, okay, the what is trust? What does it do to the brain? And why should we cultivate it?
Yeah.
Ongoing.
What do you think? Because I mean, it's no new news that the idea of how we trust compared to say 20, 30 years ago and how we trust today, or how we know to trust, or what we know to trust, has completely shifted over the last couple of decades, particularly driven by technological advancements in the digital age, and this amazing thing called the internet has changed a lot of that. What have you found has been the major difference between, as I said, 20, 30 years ago to now? What are people looking for when they're wanting to trust in the modern world?
Okay, so a couple of things come to mind there, Darcy, for me. Like, I go back a bit further than 20 or 30 years, and I go back to sort of the 1950s and those kind of times where, we knew the butcher, we knew his family, we'd go into a store, and a lot of the trust back then was based on the fact that on the social impact of breaking that trust, right? So being able to understand, you'd have your your clients over for dinner, and your wife would cook, or and that you bringing them into that very personal sanctum of who you are was very important, right? And we sort of started to delve away from that, and the internet obviously helped in creating a way in which things became a lot more saturated and a lot less personal, I guess, is probably. But what's happening now is through this, what we're finding through the stuff that we're dealing with is that, there's a great book called The Human Brand. Chris Malone and Susan Fisk, they talk about this as well, about this idea of the relationship renaissance. We're coming into this place now where we're going full circle, right? So people are feeling like, you know what, I'm being saturated online with so much option. And, if you look at the psychology of options is, more options, we don't choose at all,
Yeah.
And what we're starting to find now is we're going, give me that personal touch. So, and that doesn't have to be one-to-one in person. It can be, telcos are creating an individual Twitter account for their connections with their customers. We're seeing more and more investment into one-to-one selling and the personal brand side of things, right? Are you finding that too? Is that?
Yeah, for sure. I was speaking with a good friend of mine. Again, he'll be watching as well. His name's Steve Clayton. He's a fellow marketing and sales trainer. And he often talks about one of the most powerful things you can do is understand that you can use modern technology to do the things that people wanted 20 years ago. For example, use modern technology. People see that, they go, modern technology, I can send 2,000 emails by the click of a button, when I used to have to type them all out, right? But if you actually use modern technology to, for example, send out those 2,000 emails, but also make them extremely personalized, if there's technology that goes with that, it becomes very powerful. So, it's an interesting mix behind using modern technology to stick to the core values of what it means to be human and to actually love that side of being human and love other humans that way.
Yeah.
And connect with other humans that way, because it can get lost. If it's easy to automate something, it's pretty easy to just click on automate and move on with your day, but you lose out on what it is actually that you're trying to build, which is a human to human relationship.
Yeah.
I love the way Uber have done this. I was in an Uber the other day, and I noticed that Uber they've updated this thing where you can hear it through their phone, through the driver's phone. It's, say 200 meters on the left, in 1 kilometer turn right. And as you're approaching your house, it says in 600 meters, drop Darcy off on the left. And you can hear it actually say your name. And even though it's automated, it's kind of like, this is cool. Like, they actually know my name.
Yeah.
But it's this weird, it's like pulling from both ends. It's the technological automation of things, but still they somehow make you feel special. And finding the gap between those two and bringing it together, I think, is where the master.
And listen, I have no issue with automation. In fact, I think that I find that automation actually ends up improving a lot of things too, as you say. The thing that comes to mind, I heard a story the other day in regards to when the telephone first came out, and people were saying that this is going to mean that people won't connect, personally, face to face as much. They won't have the opportunity. You can see this being replicated now, right? You hear a lot of talk about social media and kids in front of screens and all that kind of stuff. And I get that there is so much saturation there. But what ended up happening, of course, is when the telephone landed and people started to have mass use of it, is that it improved relationships, because now they're able to speak to that friend that they didn't see overseas. They're able to make connection that they haven't previously. So I think, as you say, there's this sort of polar kind of, we need to be conscious of the fact that technology's there and used correctly, is a massively powerful asset for building trust and creating it. It's just how we use it. It's how we use it.
For sure.
Email's a big one. Email's it.
Yes. And you recently, I saw it was on social, you recently went and you did a talk on, I believe it was something along the lines of trust begetting trust, meaning how is trust reciprocated in the modern business world? And look, you go for it. Otherwise, I'm gonna stamp on your parade. But you're the master of it. So.
No, listen. Nowhere near being the master of it. It's a journey for us and an exploration. It's really, and we're massively enjoying it. But I guess one of the topics that came up, we were giving a talk on Friday, and we were talking about trust and how it can be used and the benefits of trust within an organization and that kind of thing. And someone put up their hands around and asked about the topic of trust begetting trust. I find this fascinating as a topic because there's been a lot of science around or experiments done around the concept that oxytocin, which is...
oxytocin.
Sorry?
I said I love me some oxytocin.
Yeah, love me some, the feel-good hormone. We get the same when we are trusted as opposed to, and also when we give trust. There are studies that show that the oxytocin levels are going up and peaking at the same levels that when we feel trusted as opposed to when we give trust, right? So there's a school of thought that says that when we cultivate trust in a relationship or look for opportunities to cultivate trust, we are actually building the foundations for us to be trusted too.
Yeah.
Which I think from a sales perspective, how long have I been selling? I've been selling since, 15, 16 years now. It sometimes is probably something that's it feels counterintuitive. That when you feel lack of trust in a relationship, that you should go to trust to get. I wanted to get your thoughts on it, mate, from your background. And
I completely get where you're coming from. And this is why salespeople and business owners that are making their own sales have this strangely, beautifully twisted mind, because it's you have to go against so many things that do seem like, common sense, I suppose. It's almost illogical, some of the things your brain wants to do in a situation, i.e. trust someone when you haven't received the trust first, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my mentors, I was speaking with him, and he said one of the most powerful things you can do is just take anything that you currently don't have in the relationships that you want, that you currently have, that you do want in the relationships in your life, and just ask yourself, well, where are you giving that? And this is the thing, is that's a very airy-fairy, ethereal look at it. Whatever you want in life, just give to others and it will come back in return. But I love that through this, the process and the study of neurotransmitters such as oxytocin, we're finding out there is actually scientific truth to that. And when you can apply that to the business and sales setting, becomes extremely powerful.
Yep.
So I often say to my clients, what's going on for you? What are you missing in the conversation? I'll say, I'm missing trust, or I don't come across as an authority. And it's like, well, are you trusting them? And are you showing them that they can be an authority in this field as well? They're like, no, I don't know. I thought that I had to win in the situation.
Yeah.
So, no, the best sales is win-win. You give first and you'll win back as well.
Yep.
This is the most powerful way to see it.
I think also there's a level of, we talk about expectation. I noticed on your website, you've been talking a bit about sort of the management of expectation as well. And I think some of that comes into it too, right? Like there's this, how do we understand where our customer is at any given point and speak to that expectation with a level of with understanding and cultivating of trust.
Yeah.
In that moment, I think, I wanted to also touch on the idea of, we all live in a Western capitalist society. Where for you, mate, where does money come into, because take money out of the equation and our financial goals as salespeople. And this stuff, a lot of this stuff around the neuroscience of relationship works a lot more seamlessly, doesn't it?
Yeah. This is the thing. I think money is really a representation of, it's a trade, isn't it? So, and it's just the measurable trade of goods and services, really, is all that it is. And I find that if it weren't money, then there'd be something else that would take its place that we'd still need to decide upon, right? I need to convince you that my chicken is worth as much as 2 of your sheep. If I can't, then I'm not going to make the sale. Just the same way as I need to show you that this chicken is worth $13.50. And if I can't show you that, then I can't make the sale.
Yep.
So if money weren't there, something else would take its place. And it's that exchange of energy, whether it's physical money or whether it's the exchange of energy of power between each 2 people involved in the party, that is always going to be there. And that's why there's always going to be a sale made, whether money was involved physically and specifically or not. I think that's the best way to say it. Your thoughts?
One of the interesting things that I've found is that the financial pressures of any sale are always going to mean that unless we have a structure to our selling, and unless we have, I guess, core value sitting around our sales process, we lose that the financial pressures are always going to win out, and we end up selling ourselves to the devil in some respects, right? So I think a lot of this for me, in the clients that we're dealing with, is that take a step back and go, let's create a framework around what it means to be us, i.e. the company that you work for, the company that you own. What are the areas where the lines that you don't cross, the specific value proposition that you offer, so that going into a sales proposal or a sales discussion, whether it be meeting 1, meeting 2, you're able to create a questioning line that aligns back to your core values rather than aligns back to your back pocket. So what we're finding with this trust piece that we're working on is that the more you focus on and lean back on who you are as a company, the stronger. And that, those core values are not to do with, the product you sell, or, it's about how you want people to feel.
Yeah.
It creates an environment where you're comfortable walking away.
Nice. That's spot on. If it's not a match, it's not a match.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Jay, I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. I'm sure we both can. I'm sure we will continue to.
Yes.
But for anyone wanting to find out more about you and this type of work, or where they can check out more of your stuff, where would be the best place to go?
Yeah, listen, we're on, you can check out our web agency at conduitcreative.com.au. We're in the process of putting up a jaytinkler.com.au as well. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably where we're most active, so check us out there. Obviously on Facebook as well, at Tinkler Trust.
Perfect. Is there any final word you want to give to the viewers? Anything else on trust?
Listen, the last thing I'll say is that trust removes risk. Okay, so once we get to a place of trust, risk gets out and costs come down, sales go up. So that's my final word on that, mate.
I love it. Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us, Jay. And I'm looking forward to the next one as well.
Thanks, Darcy. Let's stay in touch.
Cheers.